last edition of the lecture series Climate Protection in the summer semester 2022. So first of all, some organizational points. As you know, you have these tasks. Please upload your task not later than the 18th of July on the OLAT platform. You know, there is a participant folder. Please upload your Word file and PDF or whatever in your own participant folder. For those who are in the need of early accreditation, you can upload it within the next upcoming week, and then we should be able to accredit it in within the 15th of July. So I think for some of you it's important to have it early. It wouldn't be a problem. Some have asked me about the number of pages to write. That's not the important thing, it's the content. You find the description on OLAT, what you have to do, and yeah, it's not a task to write many pages, but to think about the topics and to think about the content. If you have any questions, you can ask me after the presentation. Yeah, today we have a special guest, Hubert Rhomberg from Vorarlberg. Hubert Rhomberg is CEO of Rhomberg Holding and lecturer at TU Vienna. We hope we have him as a lecturer also at University of Innsbruck also more often. Maybe you know one of the famous Rhomberg buildings, the Life Cycle Tower in LCT, one in Dornbirn, one of the first buildings, the first 8-story wooden building in Austria, but also well known for the innovative traffic projects like Lehrender Express, Hyperloop, and so on. He also wrote books. Maybe you know the book Building 4.0 from Ego Principle to the Lego Principle, maybe, or the new one, Grüne Wahrheiten. He just wrote it today. The new big book together with Manuela Zimmer and Harald Kür. Yeah, but the topic of today is especially on not on new buildings, but on refurbishing of existing buildings, especially in a serial way. So Hubert Rhomberg will talk about the industrialization of the construction process for sustainable refurbishment. Welcome, Hubert Rhomberg. The floor is yours.
Hello. Yes. Thank you very much for your invitation. Do we have a... Thank you. Yeah, I'd love... Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to speak today about solutions we desperately need for the climate challenge we're facing. And as being a part of one of the most important industries in terms of energy and resources, which is the construction industry, we're working since decades on this issue. So just to let you know where we come from, our company is mainly in construction, resources, and railway. So we build railway infrastructure all over the world in many countries, and are since 136 years in construction. So the group contains of like 900 million euros in turnover and 3,500 employees, and our footprint is worldwide with many different brands you probably never heard of. So the Rhomberg Group is a group of different companies in different technologies in different regions, all related to construction and very much focused on technology and sustainability. Sustainability because, as I mentioned before, construction industry is responsible for 40% of worldwide carbon emissions. So there's no industry with a bigger impact. And what I would talk about today is that the pity is that there's no industry which is less productive, less efficient than the construction industry. So just remember those two things: maximum impact and responsibility and minimum competence in solving the problem. Okay, so this is what brought me when I took over the company 20 years ago to make a total different strategy approach by defining we have to go sustainable. We have to change the way we work and we do projects, but it's not that easy, because just by saying that and thinking that it's clear, it was really hard to bring that message into my own company and to change things, but even more difficult to change that approach on the customer side, on the market side, and on the governmental regulation side, because we have a problem with being over-regulated. So using 40% of all the resources means that inefficiency is a main driver of cost. So just imagine, our industry has a margin of around 3%, but we spend 15% on errors, design errors, construction errors. So no industry in the world does that. And that's why we have to do and see some change. But let me tell you something. The problem is we're not talking about tech companies, big companies. In Europe alone, we have 3 million companies in construction with an average of 20 employees. I don't feel we could expect technological innovation coming from there, and that's part of the problem. And because it's so resource and weight intensive, it produces 60% of all transports worldwide in ton kilometer. So if we talk about mobility, congestion, infrastructure, we should talk about, do we have to transport so much things? Because in my world, and that's what I'm talking and writing about, is we can dematerialize our products, buildings by factor 5. Just looking behind the material. And look behind the material means that you know what a kilogram of something really means. Let me give you an example. A kilogram of steel in reality is 8 kilograms, although 80% is already recycled, because you need energy, transportation, natural resources to get this 1 kilogram. So when we talk about mass, we always have to put the factor on top of it. Concrete, factor 5. Aluminium, factor 28. So 1 ton of aluminium means you need 28 tons. And now the biggest scorer in our construction world, gas what material is that? It has the factor 500, and it's copper. So someone probably thinks, yeah, copper, but we don't have copper in construction. You have a lot of copper. It's in the cables. You know, when you think you make a building smart by using a lot of electronic equipment and a lot of cables, it's not smart, it's dumb. So what we try to understand is, and make solutions of it, find ways to build with less of everything and use material with the least backpack. And that happened to be wood. So that was the intro for wooden high-rise buildings we developed since 2008. When we decided we built 100-meter buildings for urban areas, because obviously we need sustainable solution for urban areas because they are growing the most. So we came up with wood because wood has a backpacked additional material of 0.2 cubic meters. In terms of carbon, it's the same. To produce a cubic meter of concrete, or at least, or a ton of cement, you need 2.5 tons you emit of carbon. If you have put in the whole backpack in aspect. Wood sucks 960 kilograms out of the atmosphere when you build with wood because you store it. Just imagine, I always bring the example because it's so easy to recognize. When the story was, I was sitting in a plane and someone asked me, what are you doing for business? And at that time, I always go through all the projects, but then I said, I work in carbon storage technology. And I was like, wow, that's high tech, that's green tech, that's gonna save the world. What kind of technology is this? And I said, it's a very smart process. It's a chemical process. And it's called photosynthesis. And trees do that. And trees do that their whole life. And then we take those trees and build high-rise buildings out of wood. So that's the way to make construction material by sucking carbon out of the atmosphere and not producing. That's why we achieved factor 5 dematerialization by building wood hybrid structures for high-rise buildings. And that's the most important thing I want to stress today, with all climate solutions we're looking at, it has to be industrial somehow. It has to be material, energy, and labor efficient. If it's not scalable, it will not beat the old system. This is very, very important. Whoever is working on great ideas, always have the scaling in mind. And what runs against any type of efficiency is this: prototyping. And I'm not talking about architecture. Architecture should be unique. Good architecture is the most sustainable thing you can have, because then the building lasts forever, because people want to keep them. And when we talk about regenerative circularity, we should think about things which can live forever. So the current situation is not very encouraging. That's a report from the World Economic Forum, but there's a couple of these reports I will show on a later slide. You can use all the slides after. I will provide it, and there's one slide with a lot of reports showing the future of construction, and they're really spot on. So I strongly suggest them. So we have big pressure coming to this very old economy. And one is the Green Deal taxonomy pressure coming from investors and the money and from finance. And I think this is the biggest push we can have in the market, because everyone is nervous now. Everyone is looking for a different solution. Everyone has to prove what the product building is about, what's in the building, how you can reassemble, disassemble it, and you cannot show that if you don't have the data. That's why today I'm talking about industrial transparency, data, and platforms, because that will be the major instruments behind the driver green money. We have a productivity problem in our industry. I'll show a chart after. But we have a lack of labor. Labor shortage is the biggest threat for a green transformation we all need for our built environment, because we don't have enough skilled workers today already. How could we do all these green changes in terms of climate solutions? So we should think about the way we design, the way of prototyping, because what we do today is producing rising prices, not just because of COVID, the war, it's just because of scarcity of everything in the future. We are living on an finite planet with an infinite concept called growth and capitalism, and that's not going to work out. And it's not going to work out with better technical solutions either, because every technical solution in the past brought us bigger problems. We just used more of the stuff, the rebound effect. The day the first very effective steam engines evolved, everyone thought, now we're going to use just 1/10 of the coal because they're so efficient. I think that didn't work out either. So we have to be aware of what we bring new now in this inefficient world. So it has to have the right root behind it. So the risk in project delivery are growing because you're not sure if you get the material on time, if you even get it, what prices you will have next year. And when you don't know what you built next year in a digital twin, you're full in the risk that you don't even get the material. Otherwise, you can secure it. So all these conditions lead to this price rise we see at the moment. And I think the answer is efficiency in a sustainable way, not just more efficiency. So what we face is taking a closer look to the life cycle and to the resources forces us to look at the embedded energy now. Until now, the whole industry, real estate and construction, they try to talk about, yeah, we make our buildings more efficient and we have less running energy, like the operational. But the biggest impact is the embodied carbon you produce when you produce the material and the building itself. That hasn't been taken into account until now. That's changing. So if you look at what you need, like as the material input during construction, then you have the use phase, then you have refurbishment, and then you can dismantle it and use it back. So But everything is always coming with a loss. That's what I learned today. Storage means loss somehow, bigger or lesser or less. So it's an illusion to think with circularity we can solve the problem. It's an important thing, and we should take it into account. But today we have a 9% rate of using material again, and it's mostly downcycling and not upcycling. So the biggest challenge would be to bring that up to double, but not more. It's an illusion. And when we today build in a way where we can regeneratively use materials again, it's very important, but it will happen in 80 years. So we have certain issues, especially climate issues, and we have those issues the next 10 to 15 years. So there are measures we should take now, very bold, because it changes something. Then we have measures we should do to save the material for our grandchildren, which are important too, but don't help anything with our existing climate challenges. So going to a circular economy, we look at the basis of products. You know, the basic is if you get a product, someone has to design the product. So normally in buildings, design comes from an architectural perception or a vision, but not in terms of functionality, materials, efficiency, regenerative. That changes now a little bit, but still we look at the design. Someone is designing, and this someone has to have a systematic knowledge about all these things. Who is making what decisions on the way, and which decisions should be left open? This is an organizational question. It's very important. So if you build a product like a building and you have responsibility for every product you bring into the world, you should think it through at the very beginning before you start with construction. And then we should not forget that if it's designed and put together, it's not easy to get the stuff back and put it apart for the next way of using if you don't think that before. So just think a building as a combination of parts with different lifespans. So for instance, you have like the primary construction, which is the shaft, the staircase, the main structure framework. This should last for 200 years because everything else should be flexible and you can change the usage and use it in a variable way. Then you have the facade, for instance, which is good for 30, 40 years. And then you just exchange it with something which makes sense then, without having to destroy primary construction. And then you have like parts, MEP, whatever, which are good for 20 years. Those should have interfaces between those parts, should be where their lifespan is different. Not gluing stuff together you can never get apart. So it's a different way to look at a kit of parts. So we have not a technical problem, it's an organizational problem. It's grown that way the last 1,000 years. And it's old-fashioned. It's like too many stakeholders with different interests, and no one has the whole picture. And this is now changing with transparency and the digital possible things we have. The mindset change is the biggest problem we have. And please don't ask your clients or competent people, because they know they're competent, because they know exactly the way to do it now. And if you ask them, they will ask for the same, a little bit more efficient. Like Henry Ford said, if I would have asked the people what they want, it's faster horses, because they couldn't imagine something else than horses. And the change can be so fast, and it's now, you feel it already. It's coming from the money, it's coming from the digital side, it's coming from the industrialization of our industry. Just imagine 1911, from 1910 to 1912, New York City changed from carriages with horses to cars. Changed. There was a study, 1908, which said in 1915, New York will be buried under the horse, I don't know how you say, shit. And they said, we cannot live there, because they didn't know where to bring all this material. And then the car came. It was just noisy. It was like not really, but they changed to the car, and in 2 years, the city was a different city. It's unbelievable. When we look at those pictures today, we cannot believe it, that fast change. And now we are exactly in our industry on this edge. This change in the next 10 years will be dramatic. And for all the students here and people watching, congratulations. You're looking at the right thing, because the biggest potential of doing business, following your purpose, changing really the world with a sustainable impact is now in this industry we're talking about. So, and what comes with that, you know, I use this slide like since 10 years, but what changed now with Taiichi Ono from Toyota is, until now, we were very satisfied. You could make money. You do real estate, everyone makes money. Doesn't matter if we lose 30% waste, 15% inefficiency, you still make money. So why would you change? The biggest obstacle for change is when we're satisfied and happy with the current situation. And I think that changed. We cannot be satisfied and happy anymore with that situation. That's why speeding up the whole process. When we look at manufacturing industry, I mean, we always look into the car industry. Why don't we build like the parts we have for the buildings like cars? We're doing that already, and we're scaling, but at the beginning, no one could imagine. So this is construction industry, you know, a lot of people around, everything is new, different versus the other. So, and when we talk about efficiency and versus prototyping, everyone has in mind like those great architectural, iconic buildings. They're good, they will still be there. This is important because sometimes there's a new way of innovation and technology with it, but that's 0.3% of the building. But that comes into our mind when we talk about efficiency in our industry. So we're not talking about those things, we're talking about the 99.7%, and productivity doubled since 1991 in the normal industry. In construction, it stayed the same, but there's no improvement in productivity. It even went down in the building industry because we had massive improvements in infrastructure, like tunnel boring industry, railway efficiency. So we had these gains there, but in buildings, it went less. So that leads to these problems: cost overall, cheap prices, transfer risk, fighting with each other. And that's another point. We don't get enough qualified, skilled people in our industry, project managers. Why? Because they don't want to fight with each other. We have built a system which is based on contracting, fighting, suing, screaming, instead working together on the project. And that is a problem. If we don't understand that as industry, we will not get people who want to work there. So if you want to work in construction industry, look closely at the culture and the approach of the company. We are on our way, and it's not easy to change our way of working. We choose our clients, we choose our product, because we want to have the best environments for young people and employees, because otherwise we're not gonna solve the challenge. One important graph is this. This is a normal project management chart, where you have like those decision makers, then you have a general contractor. Under the general contractor, you have the suppliers, subcontractors, suppliers, and everyone does his own thing and has his own overhead and struggle and risk. The pie on the left side shows 50% of the cost of the building is the building itself, what you get. The rest, risk, failures, overhead of all the people in the construction itself. So probably it makes sense to address that problem too, instead of just bringing new technological solutions. So that's what we always focus at. So when we make new products, we think about how can people working with us be on the same transparent, trustful layer, so we don't have these costs. So quite interesting pictures, development of computers and laptops, you know, and the smartphone, for instance. And then, I mean, that's why I don't like the car industry so much as an example. Okay, it's an example to think about platform and efficiency, but not in terms of the product itself. Because I don't know if you guys have heard it, the new Mercedes EQS. It's an electric sustainable vehicle with 3.1 ton of weight, and I think 600 horsepower. And it's not allowed in some inner cities in Germany because of Feinstaub, fine dust. How could that be? Because 50% of the fine dust comes from the wheels, the rubber and the street. And because the car is so heavy with such huge tires and so much force on the tire, which is much more than with a combustion engine, you produce much more fine dust than a combustion engine. So just when we think about the solution, we should think about the whole picture. And that's what means development. And when we talk about development, this is like 150 years between those two pictures. And this is the speed of innovation in construction. Because on the left side, it's the new gallery in Kassel, and on the right side, it's the City Palace Berlin. And they do it exactly the same way. So this is really heavy stuff. That's the slide I will recommend you, because those reports are really good. They bring it to the point, they nail it, where we are going and where we have to go. And where we definitely have to go is digital, because digital means more transparency, means more sharing of learned things, of best parts you have. So that's where we go to. And you have realized that what happened with cars and that. And when we look at automotive and other industries, everyone thinks can we compare that really? Isn't it a total different way to think? But there are other industries. Just look at dentist industry. Here, what you can do today is you scan in your mouth, then you do like you go into the Web3 or metaverse and you see in 3D how it could look like. Then you decide, okay, that's what you want, and then you 3D print it or manufacture it automatically, and then you have it. You don't work in the mouth of the patient. You do it in another place very efficiently and very accurate. So in construction, it looks good because we do the same. You know, we go now to the digital space and can go through everything perfect. But then someone wants a plan. We still print out the plan and end up like this. Okay, so first step, okay. Second step, yet to be done. So I have now a short video. I hope it works. And it shows two different ways of construction. And by comparing the same way, or yeah, the same operation in a total different way, done in a total different way. And it's a good example for construction today versus construction tomorrow. And we hope we already are on the second pit stop. You will see two pit stops, the same outcome, but a total different approach. I will comment a little bit because it's 2 minutes. I hope the sound is not. So this is the pit stop in.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop. Time to refuel and change tires. Newmore himself changes the tires. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch.
Imagine, this is a rake. That's the price. Today, Formula One. Very different. It's the same as in construction. When we think ahead and prepare our way, you see. Like
the tires are changed at last. A crewman polishes the windshield as Holland moves away just 67 seconds after he stops.
Now we see Melbourne. It's in the 90s, I guess. Now 2013, Melbourne. And believe me, we have found so many. What we are able to do is what we saw in Melbourne. That's what our industry is able to do, and you will see. Just by changing some rules and solving problems in advance. We solve problems in the model, in the BIM VDC, virtual design and construction model. And that means we have to allow industrialization and go off-site. Because off-site, you can work accurately, more efficient, and have different workforce. What we even do now in rail is We do simulations of the whole process. We make reality capture with the drone. We have the BIM model of the rail we have to build. We use a Unity gaming engine, bring in all the parameters, and in 3D with the Oculus, we go through the whole process and try everything in advance. We know a crane is able to lift this, to go that far. I have that space. You play through it like in a video game with the young engineers, and believe me, in 2 hours, they have inhaled everything, because that's how their brain is wired. If you have a computer game and you play COD, believe me, you remember everything what you have to achieve to get your result. That's exactly what we bring into the construction, into our digital model, and then we do that in the digital world in advance, so we don't make the mistakes outside. The people even know what they have to expect when they come out there. So we're talking about design. That means reduction of prototyping. We talked about it. Complexity, gray energy, interfaces, modules. They just have to fit. And we have the collision checks in the BIM model. We know in advance that this pipe is not going to go through. Normally, the situation is that 3 people are standing on the side, looking at the freshly built wall, and talk to the guy from the MEP, and he says, that's not going to go through, we're going to take that down. And that's the normal situation. In the digital world, you can do that in advance. So we're talking about the process, which means smart design, using the right thing, prefabrication of as many parts as possible, because they're more accurate, you need less material, you have a better quality. You can buy the material in advance and secure it. It's much more efficient. We have a just-in-time logistic. Just for instance, imagine when you think about prefabrication and robotics, when you prefabricate a lot of walls, for instance, you think, okay, I can make 4 walls a day and I have to lift them and put them to storage. That costs money. Then I have to get them from storage when I need them and bring them to the site. What we did is, we said, how many parts can we assemble per day? And that's exactly what we produce with a small buffer. Because then you don't need all the space and the money to do all the storage thing. Storage is lost. Then you have the assembly process, which is obviously easy, and the operational thing. So the construction process goes from design, planning, construction, parallel, which is always a problem, to design, planning, finalize, prefab, and then assemble. So it's like, we call it design for manufacturing and assembly and disassembly. There are 2 examples. One is Swatch. I mean, the success story of Swatch was to make few parts very easily to assemble and disassemble. So reduction there in technology, but a huge variety of designs. That's what people loved. And the other thing we know from IKEA, I mean, probably everyone had like someone IKEA manual in his hands, and probably a good time with his or her partner, getting all these suggestions. So we have 2 very important drivers. One is lean. Lean construction and lean production means that the process is very efficient, but you can make many decisions on the process still. And you have the finished product specifications on basis of platforms and parts. So if you go that way, you go into industrial production, you have product families, and out of that family, you take whatever fits. And I'm not talking about architecture. I'm talking about the essential parts to build it, like in cars. The common platform is 80%, and you have 2 million possibilities. The platform of the Skoda, the Volkswagen Golf, the Audi A3, and the Seat is the same. And still, it's total different cars. So that's the way it will work in the future, based on a digital twin, where we have all the connections which function, which are calculated. Otherwise, it's not working. But you can be safe if you use this wall with this slab, it works. When you work on our Cree platform, you can take some parts, put them together, you get a collision warning if that works or not, or a suggestion. Other designers who did this used this. You know that probably from somewhere. So the best practice solutions are connected already and help you in assisting what you do, because the problem is there's not enough know-how about sustainable, efficient building in the world. So we have to share the know-how, we have to make it accessible. That's why we build on platform. So having this digital twin, you can zoom out whatever you want. On the right side, you see these are just the timber concrete composites. That's the structure, primary structure. Then you can zoom out the MEP, and you can get access anyone you want. So our timber hybrid structure looks like this. It's like beams and columns with wood, which is not covered. It has not to be cladded. It's not treated. You can feel it, smell it, and see it exposed. And this makes a total different approach. So we put that know-how on the digital twin on our platforms, so everyone can use that digital twin and design his or her own building and get support from us. So one important thing is, because architecture did a lot already in early days with BIM, building information modeling, we have a 3D model, which is fine for marketing or for people to show what they get. But the next step is that you make that, like Lego, possible to interact. So it has to, from fire, physical, water, it has to work. So you have interdependence between the parts, not just fixing it. And the third thing, the most important thing is, you have the information for those who produce the material, because someone at the end has to produce the part. And normally in the wooden industry, they have to do all the details themselves, which is too much effort for a small contract. What we do out of the digital twin, we deliver all the information you need into your wood processing machines for the joineries, for instance. So now we see a short video. This is Autofall in the US. They're already pretty good by doing wall elements, and it's unbelievable with what speed they produce already wall elements. There's some other companies working on this. We are at the moment starting a company with a big wood industry partner, and we'll build a huge mega factory in Germany, close to wood and wood resources and forest. So we have the whole supply chain secured for our buildings in the future and for our clients. And this is something you will see in the future, because we will not have, and I repeat myself, enough people to produce what we need. And I will show after the most important thing construction will have to do is refurbishing and making buildings climate neutral. Because in 2040, we want to be carbon neutral, but just don't forget, 80% of the buildings in 2040 are already here now. So we have to look at them and not just the new buildings. And that's why where prefab is coming too. Here we have a turning table. There's a lot of technology coming, how we can be faster in prefabricating walls and slabs. And that's why wood as a main material is so important, because you can combine it with any other material very easily. It's not very heavy. You can transport a lot on a truck, and you can make it very accurate on a millimeter. So on the side, you can just put it together. Here we see how we put the insulation. So it starts with a wooden frame, very easy, putting together the boards. Then we put in the insulation that can be hemp, straw, whatever, natural material. Here we see like already the window and the grid in front of the window. So for safety, this is the wall element at the end, will be finished, assembled without a scaffolding. So just put together. That's exactly a certain project at the moment we're doing in Feldkirch. It's a office building. So everything is done like in an environment where people have always good weather. So this is the building. It's a 6-story wooden building, and that's how it will look like. This is a rendering. So we make this wood hybrid slabs with wooden beams and put concrete on it, 8 centimeters. But that concrete we even use for heating and cooling, because we can include there some pipes, and you don't need any heating and cooling installation anymore. That's the way how it comes out of the formwork, and that's the way how it looks like in the building. Nothing to do anymore. If you want, you can put stuff on it. You don't have to. So we have a total logistic concept. We know exactly what comes where, what time, how much does it weigh, how much does it cost, who's delivering it, what time does it has to be on the site. So every part has a data stack behind it with all the necessary information. So this is how it's delivered and assembled on the site. It goes very fast. So we make 1 story a day. This is built 2012 already, and it's still very impressive. This is a Berlin project we just finished. It's 35,000 square meters, and it's all made of our own wood hybrid system. And other companies are using the technology from the platform. Yeah, I'm coming to the end and want to show you the most, like I said before, the most important thing in terms of impact, and that's somehow refurbishment of existing, combining of technology in a very efficient way. This, for instance, is a 3D module. It's called MyBlock. It's a small company we started where you get the finalized bathroom, including toilet, kitchen if you want, in one piece on the site. Everything is finished inside. You even could like put your toothpaste in it and just, or start the shower if you have the pipe on it, because it's just finished and prefab. This is very, very important. Here you see how we deliver this on site. This is like the electrical devices. This is where the heating and cooling comes in. So everything is solved with this one gadget and coming on site, because you don't have enough plumbers and people to do that. That's how we assemble our Woodrocks concept. And I'm gonna skip that. I mean, we use artificial intelligence to look at possible land plots to build, and then we find out which has the right form and the right size, and automatically put a design on it, what could be built there. And if that fits, we buy the land when we get it. So we do all the planning process automatically before, not after. So here you see a parametric model. When we give some data, the machine knows exactly how to place when we have a different way to put the windows, especially when we're in refurbishment and it's not all on the same. The machine does automatically the design for the production. So I show a short video how we do renovation in the future, how to make climate neutral solutions by exchanging the energy system and making a total new coating around the existing building without touching the building and without the people having to move out. So because we have like 20 centimeters of the facade, we don't need even approval from authorities. So you can do the whole process very industrialized. What we do is we take the data with a drone, put it in a 3D model. In this model, we design all the parts around we need, produce them, and then we just assemble it. So you see that in that short movie. So it's a joint venture. This is like the product we developed, like the wall you've seen in the movie. And then we take the drone, we fly over the building, we get all the trees, everything. This building is like the digit twin. Then we do our generative design and automatically calculated are the necessary parts. The information to these parts go to the production. Then we take off the roof, put in the new energy Wärmepumpe in the roof, and put the new pipes on the facade, go through the wall, and they have the heating, the heater, and then we put the coat around. It's like 2-3 weeks, and the whole job is done, versus 6 to 9 months with 10 different people, architect, engineer. This is done all with one team, collecting like all the know-how, and we have 2.1 million multi-family houses to refurbish. So that's gonna be a good job. I'm not gonna go into all the products we developed just for a different way to build. We went away from just building something for someone. We have products, and if someone says, I like that product, like I like this type of car, we go into the design of the architect and use the technology to implement that. Yeah, I'm coming to the end with a call. That means build networks and share your knowledge. We can solve any problem on the planet if we stop thinking that competition is the solution and the growth. Both is wrong, because competition is okay if you watch your competitor to innovate, but it's even better if you share what you know with the others and learn when they use your know-how, because then you learn faster. If you have an idea in construction and you try that, it takes you 3 years to develop, 3 years to build. After 6 years, you learn something. Okay, next building, little bit different. I mean, totally different people then, but that's another story. Instead of sharing what you have with as many people, if they share with you what they learn by doing. And that's the future, and that's something which is important for any type of technology we feel is necessary to solve the human challenges. So we have to have a mindset change in terms of trusting and sharing, and not just technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this inspiring presentation. Thank you. So, do we have any questions in the audience or remote? There's no questions in the first, so.
Thank you for it's working. Yeah. So thank you for a very good presentation. I like that it was a little bit philosophical, but in many ways, but still very practical. You also talk about the challenges of human society, but I'm convinced that we do a lot of challenges to ourselves artificially because we are actually consistently, keeping our habits. So we are very unflexible as a people because what we learn in the childhood we usually bring with us, and we don't want to compromise it. So um, I think we always think about like how can we achieve these climate goals and how we can build our buildings more efficient and how can we minimize the building services in the buildings if the people would work with us and they would be able to change their habits and consider when to switch on devices. I know we can do it with a smart system, but do you think we are able and we are allowed to question their habits and try to influence them for their own good, basically, for sake of climate protection and for reducing the price of the equipment we use? I'm not talking just about driving bus rather than a car, but I'm thinking, as an example, what it would make my life much easier if the person would be able to tell me in advance 1 hour that needs to take a bathtub instead of taking a shower, or if the person must be allowed to take the bath immediately without any prediction in before. So are we able to go this way, or is it the holy cow we cannot ever touch?
I think there are two things. One is human behavior is very much underestimated sometimes when new technologies or products are imposed. So we had this experience. We built like 4 multi-family houses. 3 were like low energy buildings and 1 was a passive house. And we thought we're gonna monitor like for 2 years how they perform, those buildings. Do they meet the expectations? And the one with the least, with the lowest, or with the worst efficiency consumption was the passive house, which meant to be the one with the least energy consumption because of many reasons. Because people, they didn't even know how to handle that. They thought it's a passive house anyway, so I can waste or whatever, I can do whatever I want. Then you had the air running all the time. Like, behavior is an issue, and it's hard to expect that people just change the behavior because someone says. But nudging is possible. Nudging means, do I put in bathtubs or not? A little bit, especially in social housing and those. I'm not talking about. This is one thing we can have an impact if we offer other things which probably are not yet seen as possible or efficient enough. I experienced that so many people told me, yeah, that would be fine, but it's not yet possible. And I always say, I know it's possible sometimes because we can do it or other companies can do it. So we have to show what's already here and working. This is very, very important because then trust is rising and people try to do it. And the biggest driver is at the moment is money and investors, because now they're forced, not just because of their return, they're forced to invest in a different way. And they have a problem because they don't have a clue. Until now, they knew what's the best investment in raw materials, in stock market, whatever. Now they know they're not allowed to invest not sustainable. So there's a huge push and pull in this market. And I think we don't have to think about how can we motivate someone, just go all in and provide solutions, because the market demand is so big and cannot be met. That's my
and everybody buys triple glazing and not single glazing. It's more comfortable. The price came down.
Yeah.
It's a kind of revolution. It's a product. Providing efficiency and comfort at the same time. So people don't ask, do I need a triple glazing or not? One thing I would like to correct from the beginning of your presentation, I think you talked about embedded energy, and what you said, it's the embedded energy is more important than the operational energy. It's not the truth. In fact, especially in older buildings, it's just the opposite. It's mostly the operational energy, and then a small part of it is embedded. And well, it becomes more important.
No, when you build new, not the old buildings.
Yeah, if you build an inefficient standard, then the operation energy.
Okay.
Most of it.
Yeah, sure.
The envelope becomes better. It becomes more important, but still
correct.
It's in the range of a maximum 25% or so. It's still
but
part of operation. If you have heating for 80 years,
correct.
It's
but no one is building inefficient buildings anymore, because I think that's on the spot anyway now. So that's why I was focusing. Now we should focus on the embedded energy and carbon, because the others, yeah.
Operation energy is still important. Then you have to think about how to build.
Yeah.
Good examples that would definitely is.
And one thing I forgot to mention is that very expensive, inefficient MEP installations are the result of bad architecture often. So sometimes for me, I think it's much better to have not much technology in the building. We tend to think, put more technology in it so we can measure everything, and forget that we have to exchange the sensors every 10 years. We have to do this and that and have an ecological backpack, which is just horror. So it's the combination between those things are very important.
Become smaller if the heating load is lower, so noise becomes lower.
Yeah.
The size, the cost. Other questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm always impressed how we people can use the new technologies to get a more sustainable world. And do you think the political regulations are made for the world, what we need, or where we're going to in your area? Or do we need new regulation, new laws, better laws for the?
Yeah. I mean, regulation are the biggest problem at the moment we have, because we have different regulation in different countries, even in different provinces of country, in Germany, even in different cities. You know, the engineer can ask for different things, because says, no, we're not Munich, we're Berlin, and in Berlin, we want this detail in that way, okay? So we should take away from them the power to regulate that, because that eats up any innovation and speed. And I even have this suggestion when I talk internationally on a panel, and there are politicians, and they all say, yeah, we have to do something, and we have to go green and innovation, and what can we do? And then I always say, why don't you trust your colleagues in Vienna, for instance? That's what I asked the senator in Hamburg. Why don't you trust the people from Vienna? And he said, well, we trust them, they're a partner city, everything is okay. And then I asked, but in Vienna, they built 100 meters with wooden structures. It's not allowed in Hamburg. Does it burn differently? Is physics in a different? It's not. What's the problem? Because you don't trust the Viennese engineer because they checked everything. Okay, by not approving means I don't trust those engineers. What's the problem? And that's the problem. And that's something we should lower. So by accepting standards, I would like start with a certain group of products to say this would be a sustainable way to build, but not going into the detail. So in that space, if you bring approval from the last 5 years, for instance, of any country in Europe, you're allowed to build it here. But then they say, it's so complicated, you know. Yeah, okay. Change is complicated. It's the questions, do you want to do the change or just ask the change?
I like this. You also talked about working together and not fighting against each other on the building side, but also in terms of law, interoperability, holdings on the building industry. At the moment, mostly fighting each other and not working together.
Yeah, because they fight above a cake of the old world and don't see that the new world is so big and demand is so big, and if they just learn a little bit and change their business, they wouldn't have any competition. Okay, so but we are brought up in a way from as children we have to fight for our piece of cake because it's a certain amount of cake. So if you don't find, you don't get your piece. And the new world is coming together, sharing the knowledge, and building a much bigger cake and being very relaxed by taking your big chunk of the cake.
Important, especially for refurbishing. So I just been in Vienna talking to a group of architects, and they just mentioned this type of problem. They are all working in refurbishing business, and they learn from year to year a lot in their type of buildings. They do refurbishing. The others have experiences in other type of building. They could come together and share the knowledge. They could do much faster with less mistakes and less problems on the building.
That's what we do with Renovate, because that's going to be a platform, not that we just do it ourselves. We help other companies in different cities so they can do the job, but we have done for them, like the design, the data for the prefab, even suggest them as subcontractors, suppliers. So many can do the job at the same time much faster than we, employing one after the other project manager. We cannot grow that fast. The problem is too big. So this is kind of a sharing platform which makes business.
Important for the customer is the type of one-stop shop, that they have one person
yes,
and not different.
Sorry.
Thanks for a great presentation. And also, so you mentioned this sharing platform, which is awesome and idealistic and everything, but do you pay for those services, or what do you get out of it?
Yeah, it's like with Cree, it's every architect and designer can use it for free and make, like, being part of contests or making pre-designs. And if you want to build it, you need much more information in detail. Then you have to have some services from us. But we take like 20 euros per square meters, platform royalty. So you have access to the whole know-how, and that's what you pay.
And if other people would put things on the platform, would they then
yes,
get money for their design?
Every project, if you work with us, your project will be on the platform, and someone in Lithuania can look at it. But the good thing is we save so much time and money, because I have the example that our building system, Cree, like you have seen, is now used by a Japanese partner on the platform. and they make this concept typhoon and earthquake proof, because obviously they have this problem in Japan. And that answered the question I had from California when they asked me, is it earthquake proof? We said yes, because the guys from Japan proved it with all the testing. And this information is on the platform. The guy in California still needs the approval from his authority. But with so much underlying data and information, we can get it without doing the whole process itself. And this is enormous from time and money investment.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah.
I have another question I'm really impressed on the cooperation, what you have with your partners, or just spreading your knowledge about the technical things. But how do you do that you get information back from your partners or with the partners? Is there a treaty between you, or is it just trusting to the people? Or?
Well, actually,
it's not. Yeah. It's not in the capitalistic word. It's not a word.
No, it's a mixture of both, because you obviously need contracts, because they want to be sure that they have access to the information, and they are obliged that we are allowed to put their digital twin on our platform, and that's what they need anyway, because they always need our help and want our support. So they show us everything they have because they want us to help. So it would be total crazy for them if they said, oh, we don't show you everything, but please advise. It's not going to work. And there was an example. We don't have a partner in China, but we had this discussion 5 years ago. And someone told me, because we had, like with a Chinese partner, we were talking. And then someone said, yeah, but we cannot work with Chinese because they will have access to this platform. Then they will take everything from the platform, and then they will do whatever they want, and they will go away. And then I said, I don't think so, because that wouldn't be very smart, because what would happen? First, they have to pay once that they get some information, then they can have it on their own, but from that day on, they cut the cable. There will be no more innovation from all over the world. And we have 14 partners worldwide and many projects, always bringing new innovations and stuff on the platform. So if you cut your cable, fine, your problem, because nothing is coming anymore from this platform. Second, your competitor in China, he will be my next partner, and he will be always better than you. So it doesn't make sense to leave a know-how network or know-how platform which grows permanently. It doesn't make sense to leave it, because you're not going to be a competitor anyway. That's a different logic behind it.
The logic of open innovation.
Yes. And still it has to have some certain economical value. So what we do is combine it, okay? Because obviously someone being part of our platform, being a partner, is because he wants to be better than his potential competitors at the moment, and wants to offer his clients something he's not able to offer, like a green, carbon neutral building.
I have also one more. It's perfect. I mean, if you have a look at the presentation, just have to stand up and make ovation. But can you maybe tell us something that really failed, like a project which you hope that you're going to be a success, or some project or something where you thought that you're going to be something big, but it actually failed? And maybe the second part of the question, where do you see the biggest opportunity in the future? What do you want to address?
I mean, we're failing somehow permanently. And so the big fail probably was in projects in the past, like big construction project where we just had technological problems we could not really solve in a good way. But here we had problems that a partner did not believe us. The biggest fail was we had to learn that in construction, and I'm an engineer too, the engineers, they always have to do something else, like inventors, okay? Even if something is perfectly working, you have to do it a little bit different. Okay, so always inventing stuff, probably you should not. Because sometimes there was a huge project in Germany where they had a problem because it rains into the open facade elements. Although we told them, you have to cover that. It's just, if you put it there, put the cover up there when it rains, and if the slab comes, you put it away. They just saved the money. They said, oh, no problem. It rains on sites, but not with that product. Because if it rains into the facade element and humidity is in there, you never get it out. And the problem is, how can you make them believe you? Like, because we did some project, we said, guys, so we even rent out at the moment people for the first weeks of assembly. That's what we just did in Portugal. And the guys in Portugal did really good job. They built a hotel for B&B hotels. And it was so successful. They want to build many hotels that way because it's the greenest way to have hospitality. But they even developed new stuff for MEP prefab we didn't think about. So it was just great. We thought we should help them because probably they don't have the experience and technology-wise. And that's what we did in terms of assembly. And so they were happy, production assembly. But on the other hand, the guy we sent for help came back with innovations we did not expect. So that's why we always try to help other people, because by helping someone, you obviously learn from his or her failures. But a failure was probably expecting that it's so obvious that everyone wants it 2012, because we are struggling since 10 years with people explaining us the old world and why this is not working. That cost a lot of time, money, and energy. That's why I decided just to talk to clients anymore who do not expect that I convince them to build in a sustainable way. They sit down, hey, Mr. Rhomberg, convince me to do it in a sustainable way. And I say, no, I'm not going to do that. I sit with you when we talk about how we do it, not if we do it. And that was probably the biggest mistake, thinking what I think is so clear that the other understand that that's not the case.
No other questions, though, then that was a really good closing word, I think. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Rhomberg, for coming. And yeah, I wish you all the best for your task. And I'm looking forward to see about your ideas, about your research questions you hand in. And yeah, maybe we'll see you in the winter semester also. The topics always change. It's not always the same. It's always new. So you are also welcome. It will be also in the framework of Aurora next year. It's promised already now. And yeah, thank you very much for our guests for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.